Alhamdulillah wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. So in the last class here, we went through the prohibition, or like when people get their money freezed or their accounts freezed and their assets, or if they're not allowed to use them. And we talked about these people, and of course we're still in the main book of transactions. So since we're here in the main books of transactions, the next thing is a type of transaction which is called sulh. And a sulh is a type of transaction which is when there is something that has gone wrong between you and other people, or there's some type of disagreement between someone, then to make things like to come to an agreement, like a settlement. You come to agreement, this person is going to agree that they're going to let this go for this amount of money, or that this person's just going to pay only this much. Maybe there's a outstanding debt and this person can't pay, or he hasn't been paying it, but this person's like, I'm going to let you down and I'll give you a certain payment plan, and you pay this, and I'll come down on that debt for you to do this certain payment plan or something of this sort. So this is a type of transaction that's called sulh, which is making linguistically, it means cutting off the niza, or the dispute, breaking off the dispute, and then when it comes into the Sharia, it means it's the act, or it's a type of you could say an act is kind of like an agreement that breaks off a dispute between people. So he's going to talk. The author here, he's going to talk about this in a couple ways here, and he's going to break it down into two main categories. And of course, there's going to be some other things at the end of this which are vaguely there. Maybe it's a little far from what we think when we think about settlements, but he's going to talk about this because the main point of this chapter is that we're trying to make sure that everyone's rights are being taken into account, and that there's no one that's infringing on someone else's rights without them being okay with whatever's happening. So this is the main goal here. So he says here, ويصح Abu Shujaa, he says, فصل ويصح الصلح مع الإقرار في الأموال. And so he says that it's permissible. It's permissible to make a settlement, which is called sulh, after admittance. This is iqrar, which is admittance, which we'll talk about this in another chapter. But basically, this is when they admit that they have something that is maybe they owe someone money, and so they confess that they owe this person's money, or they confess that they did such and such, or they confess that they broke someone's car or whatever. They confess this, and so, or admit that they have this. So it's permissible for someone to make a settlement after iqrar. And also he says وَمَا يُفْضِي إِلَيْهَا, and so as well as what leads to that. And so, and these are certain things such as if someone wants to if someone is going to have an issue that happens with them, and they would need to make a settlement for something. So if they said, yes, I owe this much money on someone, then in this case, this money is something that they owe to this person, and they can make a settlement like this. Them and that person can agree on something to fix this. Of course, to break off this dispute. And the same thing, or something that results in a monetary claim. So if someone, say they had a qisas, someone accidentally killed somebody else, or and say someone accidentally killed someone else, then if they accidentally killed someone, then they need to pay the diya, which is a monetary payment. And so this is something as well that this person can use this as a form of sulh, of how he's going to pay that off and whatnot. Or something that's going to result in a monetary claim. And of course, this is normally with some type of property that comes across, that he's talking about here at the beginning at least. And then he says it's two types. He says وَهُوَ نَوْعًا, which is two types. He says al-ibra'un, which is ibra'un wa mu'awadah. And so the first type is ibra', which is forgiveness, which is basically getting rid of that thing that other person has. So if there's something that is that this other person owes this person, at the end of it, he's going to forgive this, and he's going to come down on his right in this. And so this is a type of that. Or the other way of doing this, of the sulh, is mu'awada, which mu'awada is it's going back and forth with someone, like trading something. So it's like a deal or a trade. So this person is going to make a trade with something else or anything of this sort. And so he's going to talk about, for the first one, he says here, فَالْإِبْرَاءُ اقْتِصَارُهُ مِنْ حَقِّهِ عَلَى بَعْضٍ وَلَا يَجُوزُ فِعْلُهُ عَلَى شَرْطٍ. So he says here that as for forgiveness, it is agreeing, what is this, like ibra? It is agreeing to accept part of what is owed, and it's not permissible to make any condition on top of that. So like sometimes there's different conditions that someone can have on it, such as like, I have the condition to choose, like I have the condition after 3 days, if I want to change my mind, I can change my mind. No, this has to be, you can't have any of these types of conditions in there. It needs to be a finished deal. Like if this is what it is, then it needs to be finished. And it's to agree to accept part of what is owed. And so like if someone say I owe someone like $2,000, this person's gonna say, you know what, if you pay me like $1,500, it's okay. Like this is enough. So if I do this, he can't have any other extra conditions on top of this. It has to be it has to be like a finished thing. And so this is a type of what he's coming down in his $500 that would be his right, but he's coming down to this. So this is why he's forgiving me for like 500 and letting me get away with just paying him back the 1,500 instead of paying him the 2,000, which is his right. So and then like another say the other type here that he gives as a different type, which is the mu'awada. He says, وَالْمُعَاوَضَةُ عُدُولُهُ مِنْ حَقِّهِ إِلَى غَيْرِهِ وَيَجْرِي عَلَيْهِ حُكْمُ الْبَيْعِ. So this is this person, as for mu'awada, it's and as for making the deal or trade or deal, the mu'awada, then it's taking something else other than what is owed in exchange. And this takes the ruling of buying and selling. So say I owe this person $2,000, and so I owe say Abdullah, I owe Abdullah $2,000. And so he says, you know what, if you give me, say like you give me a MacBook, if you give me this MacBook, we'll call it good, we'll call it square, and okay. So this is, if he agrees to this, then this, we deal with it as if this is a buying and selling transaction. So all the rulings for about buying and selling, they come into play here, and we treat this as a buying and selling thing. And so like if there was to be like a shart in it, then that's okay for it to do and whatnot. And so these are the two different types that he brings up here when it comes to having the sulh or settlement. And of course, there's many different ways that this goes. And of course, the settlement is one of the best things to do. And Allah says in the Quran, وَالسُّلْحُ خَيْرٌ, that the sulh, or like having this settlement, is something that's good. And this settlement can come not just into monetary transactions, but it can also come into the rights of people. So like of the forms of sulh is like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was married to his wife Sauda, that she felt that he might divorce her because she was older and whatnot, and she didn't necessarily have any desire or like desires and whatnot, and so she wanted to remain the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's wife. And she didn't want anything to happen in that. So instead of anything happening, she said, you can have the day that is my right. Like everyone that is in marriage, if there's multiple wives, every single wife gets 1 day. And they get a certain day, and all the days have to be equal between everybody. So she said, my right, which is her day, she said, I'm giving my right to Aisha, because he knew that that the Prophet ﷺ, he loved Aisha a lot. And so she gave her day to that. And this was her agreement to make sure that the Prophet ﷺ, she had an agreement with him not to divorce me, but to keep me as your wife. But my day, you give this to Aisha, and this is the agreement for that. And so this can happen in many different areas. It doesn't just have to happen with transactions such as like a monetary transaction where somebody owes someone something. But this can happen in many different areas, and anything that is something as any type of dispute between someone, and especially in marriage. A lot of times this is where the ayah comes up. is in this context of marriage. Of like if there's a dispute in the marriage, or if the woman feels that there's going to be something with the man, that there's going to be some types of problems and whatnot, then they can agree to something. They can come to an agreement to fix that, and coming to an agreement is better. Is better, of course, than like breaking off a marriage and whatnot. And so this is of the other like types of sulh that are out there. And also the next thing the author here is going to go into is he's going to talk about something which is also talking about the rights of other people. And this is a bit of like the next thing we'll talk about. I'll just mention it briefly, and like in some of the other books they'll go into greater details in this, because this is like neighbors' rights, like the rights of a neighbor on another person. So in a lot of these things nowadays, these would be left to the government. So this isn't necessarily something that we need to go super into, but we can take the general principle that we never want to encroach on someone else's rights. So he says here, ويجوز للإنسان أن يشرع روشنا في طريق نافذ بحيث لا يضر المارة. And so he says here, it's permissible for someone to make an overhang, that's a roshana, which is like an overhang or like an awning and whatnot, in the path of the people, over like an open street, as long as none of the travelers of the road are harmed by it. And so this is, of course, this is basic manners, but if you're building something somewhere and there's a path that people are going to be passing through, then of course, like, we need to make sure that that path is passable and no one's going to be like kept from passing without, like, maybe someone's going to have a overhang that's going to hit the top of cars. And of course, like, this is no good. And so, of course, like, now we have probably have like city ordinances, you know, like in a lot of places. But if you were in a place where there wasn't city ordinances, you just want to make sure that you're never harming the road or being in the way of that. And so the next thing he talks about here, and he'll bring this, and these are the rights of the people, and this is a communal right. Like this road, that's a communal road. This is not the right of a certain group of people. Anybody could be going on this road at any time, maybe from outside of the country or like outside of the state or whatever. They're coming through this road. So of course, this is something that you can't agree with people to come down on a right, because this is an open road. But he says here, وَلَا يَجُوزُ فِي الدَّرْبِ الْمُشْتَرَكِ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ الشُّرَكَاءِ. And he says, and it's not permissible in the darb al-mushtarak, which is, it's not permissible in a dead-end street, except with the permission of those sharing that roadway. And so you have like a dead-end street, you know, or a roundabout. Every single person in this street, we all know every single person, and all these people are limited. So if you wanted to have an awning out there, and that's going to be out there, and maybe it's a little down farther, then you could have a sulh with these people and say, you know what, I want to have this. Do you all agree? And if they all agree about this, they can agree for a price. They can say, you're going to have to pay us this much, and this is the price that you'll have to pay. And maybe it's like however they agree to the price, whether it's like a one-time price or whether it's like a ongoing price for all of that time. This is something they can agree to, because this is the right for that road to be nice. And so this is for like a dead-end street. All these people are able to be brought into account to see, are you happy with this or not happy? And if they're happy with it, then you can do what you normally wouldn't be able to do in something that is open to the general public. And so he says here, وَيَجُوزُ تَقْدِيمُ الْبَابِ فِي الدَّرْبِ الْمُشْتَرَكِ وَلَا يَجُوزُ تَأْخِيرُهُ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ الشُّرَكَاءِ. And so he says here, it's not permissible to move a gate or door to someone's house on a dead-end street if it's closer to the open side of the dead end. Or it's permissible to move a gate or door to someone's house on a dead end if it's closer to the open side of the dead end. So let's say we have a street here, and just for, let's give like for all intents and purposes, so we have a dead end street, and we have like a dead end street here, and then this is the main road, and we have this dead end street. So this dead end street, I don't think you can see this here. 1 second. So we have this dead end street here. And so if we have this dead end street, and then we have the road here. So if I have so like this dead end street here, if I have a single gate that's sitting here, and I want to move this gate closer to the end, there's no problem with that, because I'm not going to be going any deeper into the rights of the other people that are on that dead-end street. Everyone that's on the dead-end street, from their door to the end of the dead end is their right. So anyone past their door, like anything past their door down deeper into the dead end street, that's not their right. But from their door to to the end of to the open street, this is their right. So anyone that wants to move their door closer toward the end, then they're actually leaving. They're not going against anyone else's rights. They're actually taking back some of their own right, or like they're limiting their own rights of going down deep into that. So if they want to move their door that's here, they close their gate, and they open up another gate here that's closer to the door, no problem. But if they were in the same, but if they wanted to go deeper down, then they need to get the other people's permission, because they're moving deeper into everyone that's down there. This is their right for that area to not be traveled except by people that are owners. So this is what he's talking about here, and he says la yajuzu ta'khiruhu, which is like putting it down, except with the permission of the other owners that are the shared people that have that right to that place. Now I'm gonna put back this video. And so that is so that's what he says here, and it's permissible. He says here, and that it's but it's not permissible to move it further down the dead end except with the permission of those sharing the road further in, because this is their rights. So this is this is basically, and it comes up in this the settlements, because this is the type of their rights and them settling for some of their rights being taken. And of course, all of this goes back in like the reality of how we deal with it now. It goes back to like the governing factors. So whoever the government is, whatever they're going to do, or the city ordinances, this is something that's between them of what people do and don't do. But it comes up in the books of fiqh in this chapter here. And of course, like the fuqaha, they usually don't leave anything out when it comes to like the rights of people. They make sure that any rights or things that come up for people, that they've talked about it and dealt with it in some way, according to like the general principles of the Sharia. And so the next chapter we're going to go into is exchanging debts, and it's called Hawaalah. Are there any questions before we move forward?
Yes.
Wa alaikum salam.
Can you scroll up a little bit?
Yeah.
So for forgiveness of debt, it's not permissible to come down on the debt lower and add a condition like it can be made into payments and split into weekly payments or something.
That's not like a condition per se. That wouldn't be considered a shart. That's just a type of paying it. That's fine.
Oh.
But if there was to be something added alongside of it, or there was going to be like the condition of that you can make the choice to go back on it later, or that someone else needs to do another transaction with you as well. These are other things that would be like other conditions for that. But for you to break down the payment into a lesser plan, or to break it into any plan you want, that's fine. All of that has to do with the same thing as just paying back. Yeah. So the next chapter that he's going to go into, it's called Hawaalah or Hawaalah. There's these different ways to pronounce this, and this is basically the meaning of this word is like changing things or bringing something from one place to another. So it's like changing taking one thing to another place. This is linguistically, and when it comes to like in the Sharia, then it would be it's an act that encompasses moving a deen or a loan from one person's credit to another person's credit. So this is this act that moves the deen from one person's credit to another person's credit. This moving this loan from one person to another is the act of what we would call as like a hawaalah or hawaalah. And so this is a very important like principle. This is actually used a lot. Like in reality, if we think about what is like most of the bank transactions, usually these bank transactions are moving debt from one bank to another. And if somebody pulls out an ATM, say they pull out money from an ATM that isn't their bank's ATM, then they're pulling out like this transaction is a type of hawaalah, because this is like moving. When the person takes out money, then this bank is giving them their money, and this other bank is going to pay them back this money, and so they're taking this debt, and they do this little exchange here of like this person who's giving money from one person to another, or exchanging the debts, because most of the time this is a debt that is owed from that original bank owes you money. Because when you put your money into the bank account, they owe you that money. That's your money. That's like a debt that that they owe you when you have like a checking account. So then when you pull out your money from another bank account, then you're allowing this bank account is going to take the debt that is owed from someone else and pay it on your behalf. So this is kind of this is one of the ways, and of course there's it can get complicated with some of the ways that the debts get changed back and forth. But this is one of the ways, and also like a check. The check that goes in that someone writes and then cashes and whatnot. This is kind of a type of hawaalah or hawaalah as well, like the exchanging of debts. And so he says here, there's 4 conditions for trading debts, and so the author here he mentions, he says وَشُرَائِطُ الْحَوَالَةِ أَرْبَعَةٌ, and so he says the conditions for this are 4, and he says the first of these conditions رِدَى الْمُحِيلِ. And he says the agreement of the person whose debt is being traded. So the muhil is the person he's trading his debt to someone else. So this is what the person who's trading his debt to someone else, this is called the muhil. And this is, so he has a debt and he's putting it from one person to another person. And then the other one is the waqabul muhtal. And so then the muhtal is this person is the person who is the debtor. So he's the one who gave out the loan, and so if his loan that he gave out to someone else is going to be paid back by someone other than the person that he agreed to give the loan to, then he needs to be happy with this other person doing it, because maybe this other person that is going to pay him back on behalf of this person, he is known to not pay back his bills. He's known not to pay his bills, and he's not trustworthy. So of course he needs to be happy to accept this. He needs to be happy to accept that someone else is going to pay back this loan that is for someone. So like to give an example, say I have a loan that, or like say Abdullah owes me $2,000. All right, so he owes me $2,000, and so someone else, I want to get something I want to buy something from someone else, and then this person, when I buy this from them, I say, Abdullah, he owes me $2,000. He's going to pay you back on behalf of me. And so I'm not actually going to pay here, but I'm actually going to have Abdullah pay the $2,000. Instead of him paying me, he's going to pay this other guy the $2,000 on behalf of me. And so this, and of course, like I have to be like, I'm the person who the money is owed to me, so I need to be like okay with this transaction if it was changed. And the same thing if Abdullah wanted to say that someone else is going to pay you back on behalf of me, and then in that case, if someone else is going to pay me back besides Abdullah, then in this case I need to be happy with this, if that's clear. And so then the next thing he says here is, and the third of these conditions is وَكَوْنُ الْحَقِّ الْمُسْتَقِرَّ وَكَوْنُ الْحَقِّ مُسْتَقِرًّا فِي الذِّمَّةِ, and that also this debt is established in the indebted person's credit, that this is an established debt. It's not something that's going to happen, but rather it's something that's already happened. So of course, like a debt that's going to come into existence, I can't do a debt exchange with this. So I can't say that someone else is going to pay you for that debt that's going to come into existence once this other person buys this other thing. No, it has to actually be a debt that's already happened, and before this person, for it to be changed back and forth. It can't be something that's going to happen. And so this is the next condition that is brought here. And also the last of these 4 conditions here that he brings is that he says, واتفاق ما في ذمة المحيل والمحال عليه في الجنس والنوع والحلول والتأجيل. So he says here, and the debt being of the same type, and this is the same jins. So like this debt that is between, say the debt that someone else is going to, they're going to change this debt. They have a debt that they want to get from someone else, and there's someone, or say Abdullah, he has a debt to me for $2,000. So Abdullah and another person wants to buy something from Abdullah. Say he's going to buy something from Abdullah, and that's going to be $2,000 as well. He's going to buy something from Abdullah for $2,000. So when he pays Abdullah, he tells him, you know what, you pay this $2,000 to Dawood. Give this $2,000 to Dawood, and he'll take it for you. And so in this case, he's gonna this is gonna be paid to me, and then this would go away. But if this is not $2,000, but rather a different currency, then it wouldn't work. It needs to be the same currency, because this is the original debt. So the debt needs to be in the same currency without things being changed in that. And also, it needs to be from the same type, of course, the same type of currency, as well as the time as well. So like the due date of this debt also needs to be like the same time. And so these are things that have been brought into extra things to make sure that debts aren't running back and forth without them being equal to each other. Because this is in a lot of sense, if somebody owes someone else money, or say you have like a couple people that are constantly borrow from each other, they will trade their debts back and forth. So they'll be like, I owe you so much money, and I took this debt from you, and then they just do a little they would just do like, okay, I owe you $50, and then you took out $100 from me the other day, so we're just going to say this, okay, so this is $50 now, and so then they kind of like do this type of transaction thing. Of course, this happens a lot with banks, but it needs to be something that is, of course, it needs to be the same type, the same genre of things. Like I say, jins and nor, and like in Arabic, jins is something that is like one word that connects to a lot of different things, and like nor is something that is a specific type from that thing. And so that's why it might seem a little repetitive in English here. But say if it were a jins, and a nor, say if it were rice, then a jins would be rice, and this is like the genre, and the type would be like long grain brown rice that is like a certain type. And so then if someone else was going to pay with rice in general, then it would have to be that same long grain brown rice for that other thing. And of course, this could be done with not just money, like that we would say currency, but it could be done with other things as well. Allah ta'ala a'lam. And so then he also says at the end here, he says, وَتَبْرَأُ بِهَا ذِمَّةُ الْمُحِيلِ. And so once this happens, then once the process is completed, the debt is free from the person who changed it. So if someone had a debt and he got someone else that's going to pay this debt, and everyone agreed to this debt to change from this person to another person, in this case, that person who had the debt upon him at the beginning, once he changes to someone else, he's free. He's off the line. No one's going to bring him back. Once it happened, there's no going back to him and saying, no, you need to pay it. This guy's not actually not paying it. No, they already agreed. Once this agreement happened, this guy can't come back and try to get anything else from him. And so this is the last thing that he mentioned here, which is of course a very important point. And so the next chapter here is we're going to talk about Dhaaman. And Dhaaman in Arabic would be translated as kind of like a guarantee or a warranty or something. But the basis of it is that this is something that is that this person is making sure that something happens, or like is ensuring something, or that he's like holding to something, iltizam. And so this is in Arabic, it would be like iltizam. And of course, when it comes into the Sharia, this is making sure that something is held to, or it's like assuring something comes about for someone else in someone else's credit. So a lot of times this will take the form of like a cosigner. So of course we know like a cosigner, he cosigns in the case that this person doesn't pay, he's going to be asked to pay. And so this is a form of Dhaaman that this person will is if he cosigns, then he's going to have to pay if this other person doesn't pay. And so here the author here, he says وَيَصِحُّ الضَّمَانُ, and he says, and that's permissible to do the Dhaaman in ضمان الديون المستقرة في الذمة إذا علم قدرها And so he says here, and it's permissible to make someone a guarantor or a co-signer, it's like a Dhaaman, for a debt if its value is known. Of course, the person needs to know how much they're co-signing for it. Like if this person is getting out a loan and he's going to have someone co-sign for him, he's basically putting himself at the risk of having to pay this loan. So he needs to know how much this loan is going to be. So this is of course, one of the really important shurut, is that this person knows how much this loan is going to be, and that this loan actually exists. And so like the loan actually has to exist. And of course, like sometimes people will say, I'm not going to give you a loan unless you do unless you have a cosigner. In this case, and at this case, like it's possible to do it, to have like the cosigner, but you would just have to like say that the loan happens first, so that he's actually co-signing for something. Like technically, and like there would need to actually be a transaction for him to be Dhaaman for. So if the transaction wasn't going to be there unless he was Dhaaman, then it could like stop itself in like a what do you call it, infinite regress kind of thing. So what comes first, the chicken or the egg? So in this case, it would be permissible to do, as long as the person had they made the loan at the beginning, and they said, I have the cosigner here, he's going to do this, and then he has the cosigner present, and then after the loan is made, the cosigner signs on it, and then that happens in that way. And this would happen on like one of the views in the madhab. Wallahu ta'ala alam. And so this is also the loan has to be established. It means to be firmly established as well. And so this loan needs to be firmly established, and it needs to be known. So the value of the loan needs to be known. The person can't be doing something without knowing what the value of the loan is. And even if he knows like in general, so say he knows like I'm not going to do any more than this, and he has a certain number that he's not going to guarantee more than this number, and this would work as well because he's going towards that number. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. And so then the next of these things that he says here, he says, وَلِصَاحِبِ الْحَقِّ مُطَالَبَةُ مَنْ شَاءَ مِنَ الضَّامِنِ وَالْمَضْمُونِ عَنْهُ. And so he says here that for the person who is like the debtor can ask either the signer or the cosigner, which is he can ask whoever from the Dhaaman or the madmun anhu. So he can ask the cosigner, which is the Dhaaman, or the madmun anhu, which is the actual signer, to pay if the guarantee was according to these previously mentioned conditions. And so he says that he can do this إذا كان الضامن على ما بينا. And so like if it's according to these conditions. So of course, like the person who is the debtor, in this case, like in Islamic rulings, he doesn't have to go only to the person who owes, who is the one who's like the original person who's getting the loan or whatever. He can go to whether it's the cosigner or the person who signed right away to get his payment back. Anytime he wants to go to this guy, he can get it, no problem. And then of course, if he got it from the cosigner, then the original person needs to pay back the cosigner. Like he needs to pay them back that. Of course, if he was the one that was asking for him in the first place. And so that's what he says here in this next line. He says, وَإِذَا غَرِمَ الضَّامِنُ رَجَعَ عَلَى الْمَضْمُونِ عَنْهُ إِذَا كَانَ الضَّامِنُ وَالْقَضَاءُ بِإِذْنِهِ. So he says here, and if the cosigner pays, then the signer needs to pay him back. غَرِمَهُ. And so like that he needs to pay him back if it was done with his permission. So like if this act or like this transaction, like the co-signing was done with his permission, he was the one that wanted the person to co-sign, or this person needed a co-signer, and the other person said, hey, I'll be your Dhaaman, like I'll co-sign for this, and so he let him do that. He was happy for him to do that. Then in this case, it was with his permission to do this. Say it was with his permission, not just that he's happy, but that it was his permission to do this. Then he has to pay back this. He has to pay back the cosigner if he ever pays anything. And this is important that he does this. And of course, he says also here, وَالْقَضَاءُ بِإِذْنِهِ. So when he paid back the loan, if this was with his permission to pay back the loan. And so he says if it was with his permission. And so there's a view, and like what could be understood from this is that if he didn't have this person was a co-signer without the original signer's permission, that he wouldn't have to pay it back. And this is a view in the Shafi'i madhab. Of course, like this is not something that in essence anyone should like act upon. But this is a view that that sometimes would like that sometimes could be a problematic if someone holds on to this view, because this could be problematic if someone was happy for someone to do the cosigner. They're happy that this person co-signed, and then he's happy that he paid without getting his permission to do this, and then he says, I don't need to pay you back, like I didn't tell you to do this. This was something from your own goodness. And this is like some of the scholars, they say no, this person needs to pay him back, even though he didn't give him his permission to do this. He still needs to pay him back as long as he was happy with it at the beginning of this. But like the stronger view in the madhab and whatnot is they will say, like from a madhab point of view, that this person, that he was doing charity work by like affirming this person's loan. And if he didn't get permission when he paid back, and he's going to say, I'm going to pay back for this. Is this okay? I'm going to pay this loan for you. If he didn't get permission to pay back this loan and he did this without his permission, then they would say, okay, and then he doesn't have to pay it back. But of course, like this is a view that that like a lot of the scholars, they say no one should hold on to this view in like actual essence. This will create a lot of problems with people. And Allah Ta'ala a'lam. And so, and then also the next thing he will talk about is some of the other things that is not permissible to do in this thing. He says, وَلَا يُصِحُ الضَّمَانُ وَالْمَجْهُولُ وَلَا مَا لَمْ يَجِبْ إِلَّا دَرَكَ الْمَبِيعَ. And so he says, and it's not permissible, or like it's not permissible, or it doesn't go through, it's not sahih, it's fasid, for someone to co-sign for something unknown or something that isn't a completed transaction. So someone, like if something they're co-signing for, they're saying, oh yeah, I'll co-sign for your car. They don't know it's a Ferrari, and they think it's like a Camry or something. So of course, like this person, he needs to know it doesn't go through unless he knows what he's actually signing for. And this I mentioned a little bit before, but yeah, he needs to know this actual what he's signing for. And also, he needs to know like how much, what type, and whatnot, and when it needs to be paid back. All of these things need to be known. And so, and also, he says, وَلَا مَا لَمْ يَجِبْ إِلَّا دَرَكَ الْمَبِيعَ. And so, also for the type of like he can't do a co-signing for someone that hasn't made the actual loan yet. So if someone is going to make a loan, he can't co-sign before this person made the loan. He has to co-sign after the loan has been there. Then he can do then he can sign and make the domain, and then he can say, oh, okay, I'll be a domain for this since it's already there. But if it's something that's going to happen in the future, then he can't do this. Except, and the only one that is mentioned here that is like an exception that the Shafi'is they mention here is that except for dark al-mabi', and this is basically a type of a guarantee that this person, when he buys a certain object, that if this object ends up being stolen, like say this was a stolen object, that the person who sold it didn't know it was stolen, and maybe the person before him didn't know, but somehow it got into their hands, this object has got to go back to its original owner. And so like that object is going to be taken and given back to its original owner, and this money that has been put around, this is another thing. They're not going to necessarily get their money back from this. So when they had this stolen object, it has to go back to the original owner, even though this person paid for it. So if he has a guarantee that this object, if it ends up being like owed to someone else, or it is someone else's property and they didn't know, if this goes back to that original person, he can make a Dhaaman, like he can make a guarantee that if this does happen, and then I will pay you back the price of this. So this is one of the things that is permissible that he mentions here, which is called dark al-mabi'. And so he says it's not allowed to co-sign for something unknown or something that isn't a completed transaction, except for guaranteeing sold goods if it turned out to be someone else's property, stolen or faulty. And so this is known because of the amount of things that happen of this way. And this is this is a haja, or like this is a need that is very prevalent with people. So of course, like this is a prevalent need that that the Sharia allows for this type of thing to be there, even though maybe it's not something that has been actually like it's not obligatory yet, but the Sharia allows for this thing to be there. And this is, of course, there's other views besides the Shafi'i views in this this particular masala, but of course we're sticking to the Shafi'i madhab in general. And these basic principles that we talk about, sometimes when we look at modern day issues, we'll be looking at all of these things that were mentioned way back when in the books, and we'll see what is the closest thing that this is like. And then we'll liken it to it, and then when we see this, we'll make qiyas, which is like showing one thing, is this like the other, and then we're giving it the same ruling, and it's same ruling. So as we talked about like last week, we talked about the salam, which is basically like sold goods. And one of the types of transactions that is mentioned a lot these days is drop shipping. And some people have said that drop shipping is impermissible. And they said because the Prophet ﷺ said, you can't sell what you don't have. And this is drop shipping. And so like, how are we going to know what the ruling for drop shipping is? And we would look at what is drop shipping in essence. And then if it falls into the conditions of salam, then this is salam, and it takes all the conditions of salam and all of the things that we talked about, that it needs to be described properly, and the person needs to give the money up front, and then it needs to be able to get there on time, and it needs to all of these things. This is a condition. If it meets all these conditions, then it doesn't fall into the prohibition of the hadith that you can't sell what you don't have. And so this is of the benefits of us learning these different chapters, is that later on when it comes up, we'll see something, and we've had experience of this. We'll say, oh, this is like this takes its ruling. And of course this comes later down in the like for a student of knowledge, but this is of the things that's very helpful. And we'll see some of these modern day issues that come up, such as like the drop shipping. This is permissible. It's the same as salam. That's permissible to do as long as it has all those same conditions. And yes, there have been like fatwa that say it's not permissible, but these are like when someone actually looks at the reality of the situation. This is an incorrect view. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. And so the last thing he's going to talk about, which is kind of along the lines of guaranteeing something, is he says here that he's going to talk about guaranteeing someone's presence. So and guaranteeing someone's presence, this is something that is also another type of guarantee. It's kind of, I don't know exactly if I would say like it's not like bail, but it's kind of like making sure that someone is there at that day. So you can say that I'm going to be a kafil for this person, that he's going to which is like I'm going to guarantee this person is there on the day of the appointment. And so then that's his like responsibility to make sure that this person gets there on that day. And so here the author, he says fasl, which is kind of he's breaking it up into another chapter. He says, well, kafalatu bil badani jaizatun إذا كان على المكفول به حق لآدمي. And so he says here, kafala, and kafala is also a type of guaranteeing. It's similar to this, and a lot of times this is for something other than money. So like this is guaranteeing something other than money. And so he says here, and so guaranteeing that someone's presence, like guaranteeing that someone's presence, that someone's going to be there, or guaranteeing someone's presence, is permissible if it's to protect a human right, like for a court hearing and judgment or punishment. This is what I added as like a little example there. And so this is a thing. Say someone needs to be at a certain date. They have a court appointment, or they need to be in front of the qadi for a certain thing, or they have a certain day that they need to pay their debt. And so this person wants this to make sure that this person is going to be there on that day when they need to pay their debt. They're not going to run out of town or something. So this is permissible for someone to do this. But of course, there's a couple conditions for this, of course. But it is in general, it is something that is permissible for this. And of course, it needs to be known for the person who is going to be put in that his presence is going to have to be there with this person. This person has to know this person, and he has to be okay with that. And if this is to protect a human right, and as opposed to what he means by human right is, in general, the rights between the rights are broken into two major categories with like the fuqaha. One is a human right, and the other is a right of Allah. And so if there's a human right, this is such as if someone killed someone, this person and that killed this other person, this person needs to be to set into judgment. He needs to stand before a judge, the qadi, and of course whether he did it mistakenly and whatnot, or he did it on purpose. So then he would have to have qisas, and this is the rights of humans. So the rights of humans, there's a lot more this is a more serious matter when it comes to how we deal with them, as opposed to the rights of Allah. Say this person was committed zina. So this is the right of Allah that this person doesn't commit zina, but the punishment for someone committing zina is something that is ultimately a right of Allah, not a right of the people. And so this is the difference of the rights. So if this is a right for Adami, which is for the people, then in this case you're allowed to have a kafila, or that you're allowed to have the kafala here, or kafil for this. To make sure that this person's presence is there. But if it's for the right of Allah, then in this case, no. Because this is something ultimately that's between him and Allah, and the basis of the rights of Allah are basis on forgiveness. When it comes to how we deal with judgments and whatnot, the basis is forgiveness. And when it comes to the rights of people, the basis is problems, that these people need to get their rights taken care of. And so this is the major thing here. And so inshallah we will stop here, and then we'll talk about in the next class, we'll talk about a sharika, which is like a partnership, or having a type of starting a business with other people and having partners in the business, which is like a sharika, and also oftentimes it's called a business. If you were to take sharika in the modern vernacular, in Arabic it would be called business, but it basically means that there's partners in something. And so we'll talk about that in the next class.
فلذلك فادع واستقم كما أمرت ولا تتبع أهواءهم وقل آمنت بما أنزل الله من كتاب وأمرت لأعدل بينكم الله ربنا وربكم لنا أعمالنا ولكم أعمالكم لا حجة بيننا وبينكم الله يجمع بيننا وإليه المصير.